What steps would you advise students to take to offset the pressures of law school?
I think that the best thing that you can do is know yourself, know your limits,
Mm,
know how much you can push yourself, and try not to um, overly place stressors on yourself that aren't necessary.
mm,
I know, I know what I can, what I can't do, when I need to stop. And so I think that that's very important for you. If you need to step back and take a breath,
mm,
step back and take a breath. If you need to talk to somebody, recognize the fact that you need to talk to somebody. If you need to have some type of interaction, some activity that takes that type of stress off of you, then, as long as it's productive, engage in that and schedule that along with your law school studies. A lot of time we let you can let your mind overwhelm you in the process, and it's a powerful thing. And then what you ultimately happens is that takes control, and you're no longer thinking rationally. All you're thinking about is, how am I going to do this, the hardships of it, what I don't have done, what I need to do, as opposed to focusing positively,
mm,
organizing yourself, knowing yourself, and moving forward in a productive schedule that works for you and is less stress free. I mean, read a book.
mm,
I'm not saying you have time to read, book after book, but maybe take an hour out of the day
mm.
and sit down and read a chapter out of a book and use that as a means of de-stressing yourself.
Okay, what was the most stressful experience of your law school career?
Probably the most stressful experience. Well, law school was the only place I ever got a C.
Oh,
Yes. And so, in my legal writing class, I got a C. And it was just so much stuff was going on that I just didn't have time really to dedicate to doing all the memos and all the stuff I was supposed to do. So, yeah, that was that stressed me out. Really, yeah, a lot.
a C in legal
A
writing.
C in legal writing.
Okay, well, the next question was, what class or professor caused you the most stress?
Yeah, it was legal writing. And because we had to keep rewriting and rewriting, and I was like, look, I have a lot to do, like these other classes, but they didn't quite understand
Their
that.
class is the only
And that's
class.
right, and that's what she was saying, and that it was very important that I understand how important legal writing was and all that. And I was like, I understand that, but all my other professors are saying the same thing, and so it got really, really stressful. And then when I knew I was not going to get anything better than the C, which she basically told me, yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
Okay, how is your home life affected by you attending law school?
Well, it a lot. I mean, because basically, like for everybody, you have to give up time at home, and so that you can study. Um, if you have people that are somewhat understanding, which I did, that helped. Because I went to school when I was working, so actually at GM even at the time. So, but it was pretty stressful as far as having to change kind of how you do your weekends, everything. Everything changes. Yeah.
Okay, was studying for or taking the bar exam more or less stressful than just studying for school itself?
It was just a continuum of stress. I don't think it was necessarily really easier. It probably was more stressful only in the sense that you kind of knew this was really it.
It's a biggie.
This is a biggie, yeah, and that you got to do this. So I spent probably a lot more time studying than I probably would have normally for just regular exams. But that probably it was more stressful from that perspective. Yeah.
Okay. How often did you witness classmates abuse substances, including alcohol, during school?
Now that I have to acknowledge, I never saw that. I never saw that at all. I heard a lot about it, and people would talk about it, and the administration would talk about it, but I never actually witnessed anybody doing it. I mean, I never did actually.
No flask at school?
No, no, actually, I never did. Yeah.
Okay. Of the people you saw talk about it or heard about, do you feel like those same peers abused more or less as professionals than as students?
Let me say, probably I would think, based on what I was hearing, they would probably be doing it, if not the same, a little more once they started practicing. Because I mean, it really, the ante just gets higher, because now you're talking about real clients, billable hours, and all the stuff that is somewhat similar to law school with your grades, but it's even more critical. Because now you got student loans and debt to pay and all that. So if I were to have my guess, because I didn't follow them around, but I would think that if they didn't get some help, they probably are doing it more.
Okay. What steps would you advise students to take to offset the pressures of law school?
Take a break every now and then. Try to figure out a way to, which it's kind of difficult, but I used to tell one of my classes, and it became a joke. Matter of fact, they gave me a little mug that said, "It's going to be okay." And I would say, no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. Because even if you flunk out, it's going to be okay. And they would be like, no, no, we can't do that. And I'm saying, I'm trying to get you to understand. Because in the realm of possibilities of all the things can happen, somewhere you got to balance it to say, okay, no matter what, it's going to be okay. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get, because for me, it sounds simple to some people that the C was the big deal for me. But I mean, all my life I had been like, you got to get A's, you got to get A's, you got to get A's. And so I was always getting A's, and even B's were like stressful, right, in high school or college. So to get a C for me, even though it may seem like not a big deal to other people, but for me it was a really big deal. So but if you don't come to realize, well, you know what, I finally realized getting one was okay. I mean, I survived, right? That's a minor thing, but a big thing in my life at the time. But as you learn to do that, I think that can help you to kind of take the stress off. Because other than that, it's like being wound up like a rubber band, and it never, ever, ever stops whining, and eventually it's going to pop.
Okay. Have you ever felt compelled to intervene in a situation that you feel may cause concern for a student, or when you were a student for a classmate?
I have for students. I've never did for a classmate. Again, like I said, I never. And it may be because I went to school at night at Wayne State, so we pretty much were in, out, did what we did, and went on. So we didn't interact a lot with each other. So maybe that might be the reason with students. But here on the campus, I have had situations where I've seen students kind of what looks like spiraling out, just listening to the conversation, listening to things they're saying, and I felt the need to kind of intervene. I would see maybe at the barrister's ball or something. There's certain things that people are doing that let your indulgement, if you will, in alcohol or whatever you're doing is a little bit more than others, and that you're kind of taking yourself in a place where if you don't end up with some DWIs and other stuff, you're going to end up with an addiction situation. So I have intervened in with maybe like 2 or 3, over the course of my career, probably not too many more than that.
Okay. What advice would you give students about intervening into situations that appear troubling with classmates?
Don't do it unless you know them well enough to kind of know how they react to that kind of stuff. Because you can push people over the edge, because once you start whatever you're doing, then they begin to try to figure out how to cover it up or whatever else is going to happen, and that can lead to just deeper problems. So it's always better to have either somebody professional intervene. You don't want to report them in a way of trying to get them in trouble, but the idea is to try to figure out a way to get that information to somebody who can get a professional intervention, because people know how to do that based on those things to stop students from covering it up or whatever else the case might be, and going underground, I call it, or whatever, which then definitely doesn't help, and then you can end up with a situation that's much worse.
Okay, last one. When things were at their worst, what would you do to reflect and put things into perspective?
that everything's gonna be okay. I'll go back to my to my line. And seriously, I mean, I think that now people have to know themselves, though. I mean, if people have depression issues or stuff like that, it's not as simple to do that because some of this stuff is driven by other, because mental illness sometimes can be driven by physical issues and other things that people just can't control. So if you have this constant sense of, the blues and depression and all that, it's not as easy to kind of pull yourself out of it. But I always tell people, if you run through a scenario of things are so bad, so bad, so bad, and then take the next step you want to do. Well, things are so bad, I should just quit school. So then what happens? Then think about the next worst thing. That now that you quit, well, then now do that. And if you run it to its conclusion, eventually people come to the conclusion that, well, you know what, I think I'll just stay in school. But the idea is to pull away from it so that you can really see that it'll be there and you'll be able to get back to it and eventually. And I always tell people, never ever ever make a decision that's permanent based on temporary situations. Things will change.
Um, I did have one classmate who came to a study session under the influence once, or twice maybe, but that was pretty much the extent of what I saw. Well, no, I did have a classmate who came to a class drunk one day, and you could smell the alcohol coming off of him. But I don't know if that was an abuse of a substance or more of just one late night party.
Right, yeah.
So,
So you don't know if it was a binge issue or if
right.
it was something.
Mhm.
Okay. Did you ever feel like you would have to intervene in like in the period of educating or administrating or being a peer? Did you ever feel like did you ever feel any kind of internal pressure to or compelled to communicate with someone else about are you okay? Would you like to talk about it? Did you ever feel like a need or did you ever see that around?
I do that quite often. Whenever I see someone who, I know not very well, but fairly well, when they seem maybe a little distressed or just not themselves, I'll kind of pull them to the side and ask, are you okay? Do you need to talk? Do you want to come to my office? I've even made the offer where they can come to my office and I'll leave and they can just kind of de-stress or whatever they need to do while I'm in there, while I'm out of there, and I'll just come back and check on them. But I like to make the students feel comfortable enough that if they do need to talk to someone, that you know, if it's not me, maybe I can point them to someone who can assist them with their help, with some help.
Would you have any advice for students to about intervening with other students? Would you have any advice about?
I would say probably don't push them if they don't want to talk. Don't force them to talk, but maybe um, speak to someone that they trust. The student can go to an administrator and say, well, maybe you want to talk to so and so because they seem like they might be in a little trouble, or just watch out for them or something like that. Or just suggest, if you don't want to talk to me, maybe you can go and talk to this person and maybe they can help you out.
When things were at their absolute worst, when you were stressed out in your profession or in law school, what did you do? What was the thing you did?
After I stopped crying, I think talking to my mom always helps. I don't know how, but the woman's always right about everything. So talking to my mom helped. Working out, trying to relieve the stress that way. Um, and talking to my sisters, that always helped. And then they would just kind of calm me down and let me know that no matter what happened, they would still love me. This didn't define who I was as a person. Um, and then that always kind of helped me get through any difficult situation.
Opening up,
Right.
getting an opportunity to open up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very last question, or final question. What nugget of truth would you like to give to those students that are struggling with mental health issues that have a long road ahead?
I would tell them that they are not alone. They are not the only person who has a mental problem or mental issue here. That they should seek the help if they need it. It's not um, it doesn't define you. It doesn't make you less of a person because you may have a mental health issue. Just go ahead and get the help that you need. And there's somebody here to help you.